Welcome, everybody. And we have Lula Dutille as our guest today, middle child. Uh, Most of you know her family, but for those that don't, August is her older brother, and he first started playing Ultimate with Pi. And she also has a younger sister, Sabina, who plays volleyball and also acts and has also played some Ultimate in the past. And her parents are Paul and April. Um, Lula is 16 years old. She started when she was maybe 11, 12. She might have been 11 for a month or a few weeks before she turned 12. And she's 16 now, has been playing 4 years. And some people that might not know Lula may be wondering, well, why are we interviewing a 16-year-old when we have like all graduates up to this point? Well, for one thing, Lula is one of our only national champions in the Pi family, and she'll probably tell us more about that later. Um, Winning a national championship with the U17 girls team from Cincinnati, Baby Belle. And she's also played with Pop, Piece of Pie, and then Pi and Pi Plus, and she was a co-captain with Luke Monin last year and has played with Moonshine. So that's five teams in like 4.5 years. That's a lot of ultimate frisbee. So Baby Belle, U17 national champs like 2 years ago.
Mhm.
I don't know how many years Baby Belle had played. How many years Cincinnati had U17 girls? Do you?
I know Cincinnati was at YCC since the beginning. They were one of the main cities that participated. But the U17 girls, I think, was started a couple years after. But they'd come really close. I think the best they got was second or third for a couple years. And then I don't think they had won any divisions. I think that one was the first one where they had won one of the divisions. So that was a really, really cool experience.
Yeah, I remember um, talking with your dad afterwards, and then talking with you afterwards. And your
Mhm.
dad was emotional. This was incredible. It meant a lot to him. It was like you could tell it really affected him. And then for you, it almost felt like, hey, don't we have like another game? Or, we just won the national championship, but it didn't. I mean, it was really interesting what a big deal it was for your dad and a lot of your teammates. And
Mhm.
it almost say something about it. I mean, I was mainly watching Pigs, so I didn't get to see some of the drama and the close matchups. But
Well, that game, the final game in and of itself was a little bit chippy. The team we were playing, they had won the U17 girls division. I think most, if not every single time since the beginning, then most of the time. I mean, like 90% of the time that team won. So when we were kind of like an underdog, no one thought we could win. It was other teams that were kind of thought we were going to maybe take them down. They started getting really chippy as we started to pull ahead. At the beginning of the game, where they were fine, and then they started getting chippy, and it was just kind of a game. But as far as winning went, I I guess it didn't really register with me how cool it was, and I think because it wasn't. I mean, it was my team. I loved my teammates. I just didn't feel like I kind of felt like I was just helping, and I was proud to have helped them attain that goal. It wasn't like a goal of mine, if that makes sense.
right, so you were one of the few people outside of Cincinnati that played on this team. So
Mhm.
that makes sense that what those feelings that you had. I hadn't really
Yeah.
thought of that um, since it was your second year with them.
Mhm.
Uh, So let's go backwards a little bit. Do you have any memories about going with Pop to Nequa Knockout? That was, I think, the only travel tournament we've ever done with the elementary middle school crew. I think you might have been 13 or 12, or I think you were
Yeah.
13 at that time, but
I
I'm
was
not sure.
13. I did not. At first, I did not want to play in pop. I wanted to play with the high schoolers. I was like,
Of
I don't
course.
want to go. But it turned out to be one of the best tournaments I've been to, just because it was so fun. I mean, I had never been to a middle school tournament, and that's kind of why I wanted to, help arrange the middle school tournament for Nikwa this year. I wanted to bring a team because I knew a lot of those kids would have the same experience that I did. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun and a great experience overall.
And I'm trying to remember out of that crew, I believe Caden was there and Jake was there and Charles was there. Was Elena there as well?
Yeah, Elena was there. Elena
I
was there.
mean, you had a lot of the same crew that went to Huckaween and won Huckaween this fall, which
Yeah.
I look at that picture still, and it's still, I just do not know how you guys won that tournament. I mean, would you have like 12 or 13 players? And I mean, Sam was one of your players. Carter was
Yeah.
one of your players. I mean, it
I
was
think Sabina
none of your,
joined. You
you had no seniors,
No,
and you beat, I mean, did you guys beat like Center Grove and
not at Huckaween. No,
okay,
we beat not Rivertown,
Revolution?
Revolution, and a couple other teams that were kind of higher ranked. But yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, that was a cool tournament.
How did that happen? I mean,
I don't know. I have no idea, but it was really cool. It was really cool.
right. Well, I think back to some of your first practices. I don't know if you remember some of your first practices, but I remember it was either your first practice or the first week of practice. Your mom and dad were out, and Sabina, you, and August were there, and we just happened to be working on layouts. And
Yeah.
I always get a little nervous with new players and laying out because we start on our knees, then we just
Yeah.
fall down, and I've literally, like, years ago I was at a UK practice, like, I don't know, like 15 years ago, when it was like
Mhm.
the old UK team. And I saw a person break his collarbone because they were doing layout practices and there was no instruction. There was just layout.
Yeah.
And, and I remember your parents going, Lula, layout. And I remember, taking you guys on the side as you're getting back to the line. I'm like, hey, if you're not ready to lay out, don't worry about it.
No, we had fun. It was fine. Our parents, yeah, it was fine.
But in addition to that, I mean, I really love that competitive edge that both your parents brought, and
Yeah.
obviously is in you guys. I
Yeah.
remember throwing with you, and you were, 11 for a couple more weeks, or maybe you just turned 12.
Mhm.
And I have never had this experience with another 11, 12-year-old. I was throwing with you, and I didn't know you, and you were struggling with your flick and your backhand and with the distance of some of your throws. And especially the stereotype is sometimes girls are conditioned to need more confidence and support in athletics. Obviously, the Dutille girls don't need that because at the place of work, you get treated just like anyone else.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, don't worry about it. You'll get it. You're doing great. And you were obviously a little frustrated. But I remember you just turning it at the end and saying, the throws will come with time. I just need some more practice in a way that conveyed a maturity and a confidence that comes from probably the hard work your parents have forced you to do and the confidence that they've given you. And after that, with Paul throwing 100 throws a night with you guys, I mean, boom, it happened.
Yeah.
That confidence and that hard work for any of our younger players is always a recipe for success, whether it's, I had mentioned, Jared and Levi throwing an hour before practice, or Nate going out in a field by himself and just practicing pull after pull after pull. I mean, you can't just look at a player and say, oh man, they're just naturally gifted. Maybe they are naturally gifted, but every good player has put a lot of work into
Yeah.
any skills that they've achieved.
Mhm.
Um,
I think I have my parents to thank for that. My mom and dad both are like super hardworking, and if I wouldn't have achieved like any of those ultimate goals if it wasn't for my dad throwing with me and driving me everywhere, and my mom putting up with it. I mean, it wouldn't have happened. So I'm really grateful for that.
well, I'm sure they're also grateful for you and all the great memories. So you want to say anything about Pi 2018 playing against Nathan Hale, a bunch of guys that look like they're a varsity basketball team, and getting called out on the Deep Look podcast? I mean, you didn't play a whole lot of points, but you contributed some.
No, that was 2018 was really, really cool season. I had just gotten back from Germany, so I kind of joined in midway. Um, but going to high school nationals and just kind of helping out and just being a sport player as I think, yeah, I was 13 then, 14, 13 or 14. Um, yeah, that was really cool. I mean, but going up against Nathan Hale was kind of scary. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of scary guarding high school guys. But after a while, you just kind of get used to it, and it was just fun. I didn't think they would shout me out. That was a really cool thing. I don't know. That was really. I think that boosted my confidence a little bit. Um, and made me want to push harder and work harder. But I didn't think I deserved a shout out, but that was cool of them anyways.
Yeah, well, speaking of guarding high school guys, you graduated to guarding full-grown men at the club level because I witnessed firsthand a couple occasions went with Pi Plus when we played Bourbon Bash. I can't remember what team. You poached off and D'd one of the guys long. I think you did that twice. And there was a time there was a guy cutting in and your person was cutting out and you poached off. And I think D'd one of the top guys on one of the teams we're covering. You want to say anything about covering guys from a female perspective? Is there any difference between the co-ed or open game versus playing all girls?
I would say that just the difference is probably being more aware of my body is when I'm playing um, in the guys division more so in the girls division, because in the girls division, if you bump someone, it's not like you might get hit and kind of fall over. It's just like, oh, I bumped someone. But if I'm playing with guys, then I kind of have to be more aware of, okay, if he hits me or if we bump, then I might be on the ground. So you kind of just have to be more aware. But I think that made me a better player and less likely to like make dangerous plays or do anything that's stupid, um, as far as body contact. But I think just playing with guys is just faster pace. So when I play in a girls' game, it just feels a little bit slower, and just calmer. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Um, well, you've also played with Moonshine, and do you have any thoughts about some of the differences between playing, mixed adult club and mixed youth club? Um, you know, U17 girls, and then high school. I mean, they're all slightly different. I think Taco talked a lot about that with the speed of D1 open college.
Hmm.
Um, any thoughts about that? And they're great people on Moonshine. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, I would say it is just a different pace of game, and also I when you get into club and higher levels of play, it just gets a little bit. It's easier to get chippy games, but yeah, it's just a different pace and different feel when you get into maybe like a high school nationals game like Nathan Hale or something. It just feels more like something's on the line, and playing in lower level games or in a girls game or whatever it is, it's just a different feeling. So it's just adjusting to those.
right.
It's not that big of a difference. I mean, I love every single one. It's just different.
Well, hey, before we open things up to questions, do you have anything to say to some of your younger teammates or less experienced teammates as far as next year and this summer, and any tips or words of advice or things that you would like to see?
I would say just keep throwing. When I was on Baby Belle, that we did the throwing spreadsheets, and you could tell who had thrown. You could look at the throwing spreadsheets and then look at people playing on the field, and you could almost point out who was throwing. And that was really powerful for me because I realized, I mean, it's a direct correlation. It doesn't, it seems simple, but not enough people do it. I would just say throw and keep working out during quarantine and all this craziness.
Yeah, we want to be strong and ripped by the end of the quarantine, not weak and super soft.
Yeah.
Hey, questions. Are there questions?
Yeah. So Lula, you as a player, in my experience, have one of the highest ratios of layouts to age. So I kind of want to know, like, what makes you lay out so much, and why do you do it more than just about anybody else I know, relative to how old
Uh,
you are and how long you've been playing?
I don't know. That's a hard question. I feel like I thought it looked cool, and so I just kind of practiced and then forced myself to. And then obviously there's those throws where it's just kind of like a immediate reaction and you don't really think about it. And then after I couldn't think about it, I just did it a lot. But I don't know.
It took you a while to get your first layout, right?
Yeah. I was scared because I don't know, it hurts. It's not a pleasant thing. But I mean, the feeling of just like laying out and snagging it, it's such a good feeling. It doesn't matter about how bad it hurts. So,
Yeah, good question. Other questions? Also, speaking of ratios, and you have a pretty high completion rate. What would you have to say to people that struggle with turning the disc over a lot, or want to raise their percentage completion or receptions or something like that? You got any comments on that?
um, I think it's kind of a bit of a personality thing with some people. I just don't like turning it over. I don't like risks too much, so it takes me a while. I really want to hone in on a throw before I try it in the game. So that would be my advice: is don't practice your hammer for 100 throws and then think it's game ready. You have to practice a little bit more and maybe try it in like a few scrimmages before you go into a game and you're really confident with that throw. Yeah, but you're always going to make mistakes. I mean, my goal in YCC last year, the mixed YCC, was no turnovers. I didn't want any turnovers. That was my goal personally. And the first throw, I think I D'd it on a girl, and then I pick it up, and then I throw it away. And I had to kind of just, I don't know, let it go over my shoulder and be like, okay, from now, no turnovers. So just let things, you're going to make mistakes and then learn from those mistakes. Don't completely forget about them, but just learn from them and don't beat yourself up, I guess I would say.
We have a special guest, don't we?
Oh, yes.
The heart and soul of pie.
Goldie.
Everybody
She's
say hi,
here.
Goldie. I needed a little Goldie moment.
She's here. She's, well, we actually have a couple dogs. My mom's sitting there. We have Chia too. Chia's a little Chiweenie. She's a Chihuahua Dotson mix, and Goldie is. I'll get Goldie back here.
Yay. Are there any other questions? We're down to about 8 minutes or so. Taco, do you have a question, or Nate, or?
Yeah. What is your biggest goal before you graduate high school for Ultimate?
Well, it was to make the U.S. national team, but that didn't really work out.
You want to tell
Still
me
have a
what
chance
happened?
of that.
I don't know if everybody knows what happened with your situation.
Oh, I went to tryouts down in North Carolina for the
Before
U.S.
you
national
go on,
team.
you are one of like 4 people from Kentucky ever to be invited to tryouts. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I got invited to tryouts. I went down, and then it was 2 hours into the tryout, I twisted my ankle really bad. I was out for the rest of the tryout and then for another like 3 months until I could run again. So I obviously didn't make the team, but I think it was a good learning experience. But that was my goal before high school ended. I think when I'm a senior, I'll have another chance. But yeah, so that's my goal.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So you are one of the captains for Pi this year, or what was this year, and then you were a captain for Pi Plus this last summer. How has that affected your play style and how you perform on and off the field?
I think it's made me realize I've been a little bit more aware of like playing time and how I'm an example. I can't say to people, oh, we can't turn it over and then go on the field and then turn it over, or let's not do this and then go on the field and do just that. So I've had to be a little bit more self-aware and try to be an example to younger kids about how to act on and off the field, and then just being more aware of playing time and more of the logistics, I guess.
I'd like to comment that you definitely could say not to throw turnovers and then go throw turnovers.
I
Speaking from experience.
I could. I mean, sometimes you can't help it, right?
Every captain ever does that.
Yeah.
Guilty.
We're all guilty. We're all.
Well, hey, we're down to like 3 minutes. Is there any chance we could get a Goldie Hal before the end of this session? Because, man, that would do something for my soul.
I have a real
Sure.
quick question.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we have a player on our team who really wants to bid, but is kind of afraid to. Do you have any advice on like what she could do?
I would say maybe, well, have her practice it. But what really helped me, and I know this isn't very accessible, is when we had that layout practice at LexCath where you had like the squishy mat. That was probably the first time that I got comfortable actually laying out, because it wasn't just where you practice kind of just on your knees and then getting the form right. I actually was laying out and like catching the disc. So if you have one of those, I would say use that. And also just tell her it takes time. She doesn't have to rush it if she doesn't want to. I think you said she.
So good to see everyone. Zeke, thanks for joining us. And I think we're going to get cut off in like 2 minutes here. I didn't know if that was enough time for a little Goldie Hal at the end, maybe?
Sure. Our other dogs might chime in, but.
That would be great.
Oh.
Thank you, Lula, and thank you, Goldie.
They won't stop. Our other dogs won't stop.
Hey, it's good to see everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care. Keep your spirits up. Keep growing.
Bye.